The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Friday, April 1st, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us for this next 60 minutes of news, talk, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. We're coming to you from Rolla J Studios right here in beautiful Potland, Oregon. We are so happy to have you here. And normally about this time during the show is when I'd get around to introducing our engineer, Ganja John. He's not with us today. He is in Denver, Colorado for the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup. But of course, we do have that new technology that we've embedded in his false eye that gives us the ability to listen in whenever he's anywhere in the world. So we turn to the John Cam and let's see what we got out there. John, I think John's at TSA right now and they're interviewing him at TSA. John, can you hear me?
Oh, gnarly! What are you people? On dope?
Oh, I think you better be careful, John. Make sure you pack things very well. But also here for another introduction, and I'm so happy to be able to introduce here in the studio is the lovely Cannabis Carrie.
Hi, Russ.
Hi, Carrie.
So good to be here.
Here we are. We'll have the news coming up here in just a little bit. And what do we got in the headlines today?
Today we have an update on Montana. We're going to talk about an eastern state that has introduced medical marijuana legislation. Some big breaking news coming up at the top of the show, and then we're going to go over a new poll that was released yesterday.
All right. Hem headlines coming up right here after the first break from Cannabis Carrie. Also on today's show, it's the first Friday of the month, and that means that we speak with Steve Bloom from CelebStoner.com. He's going to be addressing a big topic that's up at his blog right now about the sexism in the marijuana trade, as well as a look at the most recent celebrity drug bust and a preview of an upcoming movie called Your Highness. At 20 after, we've got Rockin' Friday with Herb Thrasher, and we got not a double shot, but a triple shot of metal, because, you know, Herb is made of metal. So we're going to hear some great songs from a band called Tree. 2 songs in hour 1 and a bonus song in hour 2 with Herb Thrasher on the phone. And then at the end of the show, a little radical rant about police corruption, an amazing story that's coming out from San Francisco, reported by the San Francisco Chronicle, that just tells what we've been saying a lot about cops on the stand and their lies. So those stories are all coming up here on NORML Show Live, plus hour 2 Toker Talk Radio with Cannabis Carrie in studio. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
NORML National Conference 2011, Denver, Colorado, April 21st through 23rd.
I'm not a crook.
When President Nixon declared war on marijuana smokers, NORML was founded by a young lawyer named Keith Strop. And now, in our 40th year, NORML is coming of age as states begin discussing outright marijuana legalization.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Join us in Denver, Colorado, the day after 420 for our 40th annual national conference. You'll learn about marijuana law, cannabis science, and the grassroots activism necessary to end prohibition. Set in the Mile High City, America's cannabis capital. Special guests include medical marijuana pioneer and Harvard emeritus Dr. Lester Grinspoon, U.S. Congressman Jared Polis, and NORML founder Keith Strop. NORML National Conference 2011, coming of age in Denver, Colorado, April 21st through 23rd. It's the true Rocky Mountain High.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carey.
At a press conference today, Honolulu Police Chief Louis M. Kealoha revealed a warrant issued for the arrest of President Barack Obama on charges of cocaine and marijuana distribution. Chief Kealoha stood with copies of Mr. Obama's memoir, Dreams of My Father. Police spokesman Jeffrey Spicoli recited the passages where the president recounted his drug crimes as a teenager at the exclusive Punahou Prep School in Honolulu. I blew a few smoke rings, remembering those years. Pot had helped, and booze, maybe a little blow when you could afford it.
I discovered that it didn't make any difference whether you smoked reefer in the white classmate's sparkling new van, or in the dorm room with some brother you'd met down at the gym, or on the beach with a couple of Hawaiian kids who had dropped out of school and now spent most of their time looking for an excuse to brawl.
White House Press Secretary Jay Carney briefly dismissed news of the arrest warrant. He told reporters that the president was forthright about his youthful indiscretions in interviews as well as in his books, but that the statute of limitations on crimes of drug possession and distribution have since passed. Chief Kealoha brushed aside Mr. Carney's concerns about Mr. Obama's youthful cocaine and marijuana use. He noted the president's continued rejection of drug legalization means Honolulu police officers are charged with arresting young people no different than a young Barry Obama. The chief observed that since becoming president, Mr. Obama has taken a drug test. Quote, if we're going to ask something from you, Kealoha told a young reporter, we ourselves need to be ready to do it. Mandatory guidelines for federal workplace drug testing are available for many of Mr. Obama's employees in the executive branch, but no one has verified that Mr. Obama can pass a drug test, explained Kealoha. The chief believes Mr. Obama's admitted use and distribution of cocaine and marijuana to minors make him a prime suspect for continued drug abuse. The chief pointed to Mr. Obama's failure to accompany his family on a December trip to Oahu as evidence that the president was aware of the forthcoming Hawaiian warrant and chose to avoid the bad publicity. The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, states that Mr. Obama's distribution of marijuana, if it happened today, would be a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in prison and a fine of up to $2,000. Any amount of marijuana greater than 1 ounce is a felony, punishable by up to 5 years in jail and a fine of $10,000. The possession and distribution of any amount of cocaine by Mr. Obama, according to the criminaldefenselawyer.com, would be a felony with a possible 5-year prison term for 1/8 of an ounce. It's 10 years, and if Mr. Obama possessed 1 ounce or more of cocaine in Hawaii today, he could face 20 years in prison.
Wow, what an amazing coincidence that the news of Barack Obama being sought on a warrant for cocaine and marijuana in Hawaii would come out on April 1st. How interesting.
In the wild trip for medical marijuana regulation in Montana, the Senate voted 29-21 for a full repeal to Montana's medical marijuana law. After an emotionally charged debate on Thursday marked by angry political speeches and finger-pointing from senators on both sides of the issue, in the end, the Senate finally gave approval to House Bill 161, sponsored by Speaker Mike Milburn, a Republican from Cascade. Earlier on Thursday, the Senate voted 36-14 for Senate Bill 423, the bill that would essentially overrule the current medical marijuana law in Montana and replace it with one that has much stricter controls, essentially culling down the legal medical marijuana patients from almost 30,000 today to only about 2,000. We reported earlier this week that the Senate had missed a key deadline in Senate Bill 423, so it would need a two-thirds majority vote in the House to pass. Speaker Milburn asked the House GOP majority to suspend the rules and take up Senate Bill 423 as a second option to the repeal bill that he and other GOPers prefer. During the debate on the repeal bill 161, Republican Senator Rowley Hutton said that as a pastor, he had been asked to participate in many interventions for people addicted to marijuana and asked that medical marijuana be made illegal again, saying that sometimes the most compassionate answer you can give to someone is no. Democrat Senator Ron Erickson urged the senators to reread some of the emails that they have been receiving from Montanans on the issue. He said that over and over, people have been telling them that their lives are so much better since they have begun using medical marijuana. He said that the constituents of Montana have been begging lawmakers to let them be allowed to live their better lives. But the debate became one of party lines, as Republicans said the Democrats left them no choice but to vote for a full repeal after refusing to give the GOP majority the votes for a $97.8 million bonding bill that also needs a two-thirds majority to pass yesterday. Senator Taylor Brown chided the Democrats for blocking the rules waiver the day before. Both sides accused the other of playing political games, and Senator Chaz Vincent, a senator who previously opposed the repeal bill and helped rewrite the overhaul bill, said he was compelled to vote for the repeal bill after what happened with the bonding bill on Wednesday. He suggested that organized crime might be involved in medical marijuana and that drug abuse was rampant in Montana public schools. He encouraged everyone in his caucus to vote yes on House Bill 161, the full repeal. Senator Kim Gillen, a Democrat from Billings, said that she is tired of being lectured about drug abuse in schools and said that she hopes legislators will concentrate on other needs in schools, a reference to her own school funding bill. The repeal bill, House Bill 161, will need one more vote in the House to move forward. That vote might happen as soon as today. So, Russ, some scary possibilities for Montana citizens and some obvious problems in the Montana legislature. We'll have more on the story next week as the bills make their way towards the governor.
Yeah, it's beginning to look like Governor Brian Schweitzer might be the last thing that stands between 28,000 sick and disabled people returning to criminal status. Get in touch with the governor, folks. I've got the address up on the blog at stash.normal.org. It's Governor Brian D. Schweitzer, Montana State Capitol Building, P.O. Box 200-801. That's 200-801. 200-801 is the P.O. Box. Helena, Montana, 59620. And the phone number there is 406-444-3111. That's 406-444-3111, as we would say in talk radio. And it's amazing the story behind this, too. You know, they had the House Bill 161, the full repeal, come up to the Senate. And then they said, no, full repeal, that's maybe a little bit much. Let's put this new thing to decimate the program, right? Literally decimate the program and restrict it a little more. But that bill, they don't get to it soon enough, so they can't pass that with a majority to fix it, to what they consider fix the Montana bill. So then they're stuck with having to get a full two-thirds majority, which in a Senate of 50 means you got to get 37 votes. And they get 36 to 14. That SB 423 didn't make it. So since they can't do what they consider a fix, well, let's bring back from the grave 161 and repeal the whole damn thing. Did I get that straight pretty much?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah, so now, and of course this is not politically popular with the people of Montana. When they were polled by the Montanans for Montana Patients and Families United, they found that a majority of the citizens of Montana did not support a repeal of medical marijuana, although a plurality supported fixing it, coming up with stricter restrictions for it, to be fair. But they do not support this repeal. And it's just sad to see this when the citizens of a state vote for a law. They do an initiative and by a 62% margin pass this law. And then to have 50 people in a House, and I forget what it is or 50 people in the Senate, and however many there are in the House in Montana, 44 or however many, I forget. But to have that small group of people decide that 62% of the state is wrong and that we need to recriminalize 28,000 Montanans, it's just obscene. And I sure hope Governor Schweitzer has the decency to stop this.
And in the Delaware Senate on Thursday, a medical marijuana bill sailed through the Senate and is now on its way to the House. Senate Bill 17 would allow patients with a debilitating or serious condition to possess or cultivate cannabis if they have a doctor's written recommendation. If passed, patients could possess up to 6 ounces that they could get at a dispensary, but that is the only place a patient can get medical marijuana. Senate Bill 17 does not allow for home cultivation, and you can only purchase 6 ounces in any given month. But even with the limitations, the bill received overwhelming support and cleared the Senate with a vote of 18-3. Right before the vote, an amendment was added lowering the minimum age for qualifying patients from 21 down to 18. The bill does have provisions for allowing post-traumatic stress disorder as a qualifying condition. Senator Michael Katz, who happens to be a physician, questioned some of the comments made during the floor debate this week, saying that there is no consensus within the medical community about the validity of medical marijuana. But in the end, Senator Katz did vote to support the bill. The bill's chief sponsor, Senator Margaret Rose Henry, a Democrat from Willington, called the measure a compassion bill and explained that the bill would establish 3 privately run nonprofit marijuana dispensaries, 1 for each county in the state. Those dispensaries would be authorized to grow the medical cannabis that they sell under tightly controlled conditions, and patients, after they have been qualified, would be issued a state ID card to show when they were purchasing their cannabis. Caregivers would also be issued state ID cards so they could go and purchase medical marijuana for a patient, and they would be allowed to purchase marijuana for up to 5 designated patients. But even with the sweeping support among legislators, in a surprising development, a group representing law enforcement declared their opposition to the legislation. I apologize for the sarcasm. It's Friday. Speaking at a Senate committee hearing, Chief Police Jeffrey Hovath, representative of the Delaware Police Chiefs Council, said that the bill sets a bad example and is only based on purely anecdotal evidence of the drug's effectiveness as a medical treatment. He said it sends a bad example to the children that marijuana is a good thing. Horvath said that the patients who believe that marijuana might help them can use legal synthetic products like Marinol, and that other drugs that come in crude form are not used without processing. He gave the example of morphine, proven to be a medically valuable drug, but the Food and Drug Administration does not approve the smoking of opium or heroin. Patients disagree with that assessment, saying that Marinol and its related drugs are not as effective as marijuana and too costly for most patients. Also, in the arguments of law enforcement at the hearing of Senate Bill 17 was the warning to Delaware legislators that corruption and misuse will be the result of the passage of the bill, saying that California is a disaster since the passage of their own medical marijuana bill. Police Chief Hovarth also questioned how the dispensaries would get their marijuana seeds and plants. Okay, this is the most outrageous thing in the whole thing. Speaking from his experience as a drug enforcement officer, Horvath said that the majority of marijuana that makes its way to the market is laced with other dangerous drugs, mostly the hallucinogen PCP.
Oh, yeah.
His arguments obviously didn't have much effect on the senators, and that bill will now be considered in the Delaware House.
Chock full of PCP. Right there. A big jar full of PCP-laden buds. You can't get away from them. PCP. Here we go. Another jar. More PCP. Right there. Come on now. Come on now. That's so ridiculous. But here we see another East Coast, no garden state type of law, not allowing home cultivation. But there's some other stuff in here that's really good. I mean, the 18-year-old limit, that's good. Adding PTSD. Every medical marijuana state right now should be adding PTSD as a qualifying condition. And notice how this just sailed through the Delaware Senate there, 18-3. It's almost as if they know how popular medical marijuana is, and it's like, let's hurry and get through the one that we want before they put together something, although I don't believe Delaware has an initiative. But again, it just shows how much they want to try to control medical marijuana. Let's take a look at that poll number, too.
And the latest Harris Interactive poll was released yesterday with some good news for medical marijuana advocates, showing that the trend of acceptance of medical cannabis is only gaining support. The new Harris poll had some rather in-depth questions about legalizing marijuana, such as asking what the respondents believe would be the consequences of legalizing. 41% thought that the overall crime rate would decrease, and 44% thought that we would spend less money on prisons. A striking 75% of the respondents from all regions agreed that if prohibition were to end, then we would see significant tax revenue generated from cannabis. Overall, the new Harris poll showed that 3 out of 4 Americans strongly support or somewhat support the medical use of cannabis. Even though states that have medical marijuana are more dense in the western half of the United States, support for medical marijuana in the east was showing a strong 80%, believing that we should allow the use of medical cannabis, and 74% believing that it should be allowed in the with 74% believing that it should be allowed in the western states. The South had the lowest support of medical marijuana, no surprise there, but still a large majority with 69% supporting legalizing medical marijuana. And nationwide support of legalization for personal use in this poll only comes in at 42%, with opposition at 49%. So looking at the coast, though, show that half of the people in the east and west support legalization, presumably a majority when there must be some no opinion and no answer responses. Now, in another question, Harris asked, regardless if you think marijuana generally should be legalized or not, do you think that the decision should be at the state level, or do you think a federal decision should apply to all the states? Only in the East did a plurality of respondents believe that the federal government should dictate marijuana policy at 47%, while pluralities in the South, 44%, and Midwest, 42%, believe that it should be a state decision. In the West, a majority, 52%, believe that it should be a state decision, and most people believe that legalization will increase the number of people who use it, 68%, and the amount that they use it, also 68%. Raise tax revenue, 75%, and increase the consistency and standardization of cannabis at 59%.
All right, great numbers. We'll take a little more depth look at that at the hour 2 when we get a chance in Toker Talk Radio. Thank you, Kerry, for the news. When we come back, Herb Thrasher and your Rockin' Friday double shot.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
High in the Rockies, for the first time ever, High Times is hosting the Medical Cannabis Cup in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup. There'll be cultivation seminars with High Times editors Danny Danko and Nico Escondido, plus other experts and cannabis celebrities. Attend activism seminars with leaders of the medical marijuana movement, including advice on how to start your own cannabis business. Meet industry leaders in medical cultivation, hydroponics, smokable glassware, hemp products, dispensary supply, cannabis accessories, and more. Plus, Medical Cannabis Cups will be awarded to the best indica, sativas, concentrates, and edibles entered by legally operating medical marijuana dispensaries and growing collectives. And don't forget Saturday night when the Medical Cannabis Cup will host the extravaganza with surprise musical guests. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, April 2nd and 3rd, 2011 at Exto in Denver, Colorado. Visit medcancup.com for details. Be part of the growing cannabis industry. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup in Denver.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of NORML Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at norml.org.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our PodSafe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we take you into the weekend with Rockin' Friday, our segment featuring the best rock, metal, punk, and jam band music, brought to you by Herb Thrasher at herbthrasher.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, time to get the horns out, and the man made of metal is here with us, Herb Thrasher, ready for Rockin' Friday. How you doing, Herb?
We're doing great today, man. Glad to see you in studio today, Carrie. Right on. That is good stuff. So, yeah, we're doing good today. We're rocking. We've got a Tree on board here, and we're going to have not one and not two, but 3 songs to play from these guys. Because these guys right here, they've just been around for a whole long time, and they've really put their time and energy into the cannabis movement through the years also, and they deserve a little bit of payback.
Right on.
And so we're going to play them back today. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say one little thing, that today is my little Clara's 3rd birthday today, and I'm just so excited. I just wanted to give her a little happy birthday over the waves there.
Happy birthday, Claire. Did you get her some shoes for her birthday?
We did get her some shoes. She's a big shoe fan.
Yeah, me
she
too.
She takes after Candace Carey.
I love it.
So there you go.
I also, just completely off the topic here, coming across Twitter, I just got the news that Central Arkansas University is going to install a purple and gray field for their college football.
Oh, my goodness. See, you guys started it, and then there it is. Who's next?
Who's next? I don't know yet.
But let's just add some yellow to the duck field, and let's just go with that, too.
Yeah, really.
All right. So yeah, getting back to some tunes, guys. The first 2 songs today I picked, first of all, because they rock. But second of all, like the first song, Not Afraid, I have a little prelude into that because what the deal is with this is, a lot of times I wonder, like, are we winning this war, or are the feds, are they winning? Is medical winning? Is it not winning? Because it seems to go back and forth sometimes, and it depends on my mood that day, I think. But one place that I know that we are winning, and one place that the feds have lost, and they're not losing, they've lost, is that we're not afraid anymore, guys. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but I mean, it's just everywhere now. And I got so many friends who 10 years ago would have never, ever, ever even thought about saying the word marijuana or pot. And now, I mean, they just live it.
Yeah.
And they've lost that. They've lost that grasp. It's over. And we're not afraid anymore.
Right.
And so I thought that was a very good little message. And the second song, guys in the cameras, chat rooms right now, you guys need to load your bongs. If I'd have been on my game, I would have called Guinness Book of World Records, and we would have tried to get the most bong hits at the same time. But I didn't think of this idea until a little while ago, so I couldn't call Guinness. But the second song, God Grows Grass, right around the 110 mark, guys, there's a guitar solo. And right in that guitar solo, you can hear a big old fat bong rip. It's such a beautiful music weapon instrument. And so at that 110 mark, I really should request you guys to fire that thing up with Tree and rock it. And so on that note, let me give just a little bit of a bio real quick.
All right.
Tree's a hardcore metal band. They're from Boston, Massachusetts. They always played it loud and hard and in your face. They've traveled around for many years, and they definitely held their head high. So constant and relentless touring has seen Tree share the stage with Clutch, Sheer Terror, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Fear, Godsmack, Stain. So just a ton of great, great, great bands. And as I've said, they're no stranger to the cannabis community. They have played the Boston Freedom Fest rally for every year. They're always on the main stage, and they've just done some other festivals along the years. They've never been afraid to wear pot shirts and speak it in some of their song titles. So, guys, definitely fire up some Tree, bring them back. They're not a band anymore, unfortunately, but they still rock and they still have projects out there. So they still have a website, treemusic.com. And then they have their MySpace, Tree Westwood. So myspace.com/Tree Westwood. And so, let's get to it, guys. Keep being loud and proud and not afraid. And God goes grass and smoke it up, fire it up. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, Herb Thrasher. Will be calling us back in hour 2 for a little bit more, our third song of the Tree Trilogy. This is Not Afraid, followed by God Grows Grass.
In the beginning, from the sky with a conscious effort. While my life caught up in those corrupted ways that pollute a sorry days, and I'm not afraid of being afraid. Fear takes heroes as well as great. Not afraid of being afraid. 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 Like growing up in your body, head by head, you're opening up your eyes for the first time. There are a lot of you will not understand, cause you never shook your own death by the hand. We're all just made of flesh and bone. We'll live our lives till we die alone. I yearn to learn, that makes me burn. The survival is my concern. Filling me with energy, white hot over intensity. Love a small blade in the giant field, but knowledge is a weapon for all to wield. Sometimes I envy those who cannot see all something that they climb in agony. With the same breath, well, I feel bad. Rolling to the knobs that I never had. Not afraid of being afraid. Fear takes heroes as well as great. Not afraid of being afraid. 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 Got nothing to fear. Got nothing to fear. Got nothing to fear. Got nothing to fear. I 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 got nothing to fear but fear, and I'm not afraid.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
USVI normal go broke down barrier. Herb is medicine to broke down barrier. Boost the economy and broke down barrier. It's helping other states broke down barrier. Cannabis for legalized to broke down barrier. Join and speak your voice broke down barrier. We gonna change the law broke down barrier. We got to educate broke down barrier. Yeah, this is Nayora, bigging up USVI normal, working to legalize cannabis, for the whole of the Virgin Islands.
USVI NORML is a non-profit organization working to legalize cannabis for the use by the industries and responsible adults. Do your part. Join USVI NORML. Register to vote. Pass the word. Voice your opinion. You can change the law. Contact us for more information at 340-244-9979.
Marijuana culture is infused throughout America and the world. As we round out the week, we take a look at the 420 phenomenon in movies, TV, music, and sports with former High Times editor and author of Pot Culture, Steve Bloom, in our CelebStoner.com entertainment news.
All right. Hey, before we get into the Celeb Stoner report, want to let Herb know we'll get to that second tune in the second hour and the third tune as well. We're running a little bit behind on the clock here. We ran a little bit late on the news, and I didn't want to keep Steve waiting. So, Steve Bloom out there in New York City. How you doing, Steve?
I'm great. How are you, Russ?
Spring has sprung out here in the Pacific Northwest. I hope you guys are doing okay.
Not too well here. It's still pretty chilly. We're in the 40s.
Yeah, I know baseball season has started. Up on your blog at celebstoner.com, you noted Timmy Lincecum was starting, and how did that turn out?
He lost last night, a tough one. He lost 2-1 to the Dodgers. Unearned run kind of bit him in.
Oh, that's a shame. All right. Hey, let's get to some of the topics you wanted to cover on today's report, because I know you've had a blog post, and Mama Kind, another one of your bloggers, has had a post, and there's been a lot of discussion on Celeb Stoner about the perceptions of sexism within the marijuana trade, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that.
Well, where would you like me to begin?
I guess it begins with the MPP benefit at the Playboy Mansion in your blog post that you wrote about that, and then the people's responses to that. How have the responses been?
Well, back a couple of weeks ago when the MPP announced that they were going to be going back to the Playboy Mansion, I posted that I suggested that people boycott the event for several reasons. One was that I just felt that it wasn't a really appropriate place for the NPP to hold an event after the problems they've had with their leadership in the last year related to sexual harassment and other issues that happened at the NPP office regarding Rob Campea. So I really do question that. And, being on this, the NORML show live, I mean, I'd rather not, spend a lot of time, talking about the difference between NPP and NORML. Sure. Obviously, people who are tuning in are most likely NORML fans and perhaps prefer NORML to NPP as I do. And I just don't think people should be throwing down $1,000 to the NPP after what they did last year. I think people should be giving money to NORML. And I really, I think there's several reasons why I really don't think it's a good idea for people to support that event. The location, what's been going on with the organization, and if you're going to spend some money, give it to NORML.
Oh, well, I'll be glad to take any donations that we can get. Now, as far as the rest of your blogging staff there on Celeb Stoner, let's talk about the response that you got from some other bloggers and commenters there.
Well, I mean, people were wondering initially when I first posted the boycott, I did it on Facebook, and people immediately were like, why, how, what's going on? And, it seemed that people seem to have very, short memories as to what happened last year and the year before, at the NPP and Rob Campea. So I felt it was necessary to go into a little more detail. So I wrote a blog called Sexism in the Marijuana Trade, and I traced back my years when I worked at High Times, and I'm not saying High Times is sexist, but I was just trying to say that High Times sort of got this ball rolling. They were the ones who started putting sexy women on the cover, who weren't activists necessarily, who weren't, entertainers, who were, in a lot of cases, porn stars, Playboy pinups, penthouse pets, girls next door, now the Miss High Times. There's a lot of cheesecake on the cover of High Times over the last, 10 years, and I was there while that was happening. So I wanted to sort of explain why I believe that happened, because High Times is sort of a male-dominated run company, or at least staff-wise, and, they see their audience as a male audience. And when I worked there, I felt that, High Times was not really catering to the female audience the way it should, even though, probably the stoners out there are split 50-50, and, maybe more men smoke than women, or smoke more perhaps, but still, let's face it, I mean, even if there's a breakdown of 55 to 45, more men smoking than women, that's still a huge, audience of 45% out there that High Times seem to be ignoring and kind of pissing off by doing these, these pictorials, that seem to indicate that this is the type of women that High Times, really want to celebrate. So I kind of went off from there, and then, where that has led, I think, has led to this, issue that we're sort of dealing with, which is kind of the so-called buds and babes, pot and porn, kind of a little bit of an overkill in that area. If you go over the web, you'll find lots of photos on sites like 420 Girls and Hail Mary Jane. And, so I sort of wanted to just open up this question. And it did, create a controversy last week when I brought it up, or in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of toned down because I don't want to keep stoking this, day after day after day. I want to discuss other things, but sure. It obviously hit a nerve, and hit a nerve, where the responses were all over the place, either from men who called me a pussy, from women who said we don't need your help, from women who were thanking me, from men who thought it was a good idea, and it's something that I think hasn't really been discussed fully, and so that's why by bringing it up, all these comments came out and all these opinions all over the place. People kind of really wondering, what was my point? And my point is that I just feel that, it would be better to tone down this way of treating women, pictorially in magazines on websites. And if you're going to do it tastefully, and don't focus on, nudity, and don't focus on putting bongs between your legs and doing things that are overtly sexual. I'm not anti-sex. I'm not a prude, but I don't think it really benefits us to do this, overall. And I think it really is demeaning to women. So I really just wanted to bring up all these points.
Yeah. Do you feel the context of the discussion here? I mean, because this discussion can be had about the objectification and use of sex in any trade. I mean, we could look at it in, beer commercials and all sorts of areas. But is it a different conversation because we're dealing with something that's illegal and it's more of a movement than it is strictly a business?
I mean, to some extent, yes. I think we do all have a higher calling, and I'd like to think that we're a little bit above, what everybody else out there is doing in their different communities. And, but that's probably not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, we have a higher calling, but doesn't mean that everybody's a genius out there, or everybody is politically correct, or everybody's going to share all the same opinions. The thing with marijuana is it's such a broad thing. Everybody who smokes marijuana, they come from all different walks of life. So you really have to, not just men and women, but different breakdowns, obviously racial, religious, male, female, but also, lifestyle choices, obviously gay, heterosexual. There's such a broad audience that sometimes we can't kind of agree on things. And it's a little hard because everybody has an opinion and it's very wide net that we have. So it's a little hard to, get agreement on stuff like this. But I think, I think the best of it is that I think it opened the door to the discussion. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I think myself and others are kind of watching. We're looking at to see what other websites are going to do. Are they going to continue to do, contests called the Butterface Tournament or things like that on a marijuana site? To me, it felt like, when I see something like that on a site, by Stoner Jesus or the guy who also, Joe Clare, who does 420 Times, he's a good journalist, but then he goes off on this other direction. And it's like, I kind of called him on it. And I said, why are you doing this? And I still call him on this. Why are you spending your valuable space on your website for a so-called Butterface contest that has nothing to do with marijuana? And it is demeaning to women, and it's demeaning to the celebrities. He thinks it's a big joke because, Howard Stern does it. I don't think that's where we should be going. But everybody says, hey, I have the right to do whatever I want. You do, but I'm telling them in return, we're watching. We don't have to come to your site. We don't have to approve of what you do, and we do have places to discuss it. Facebook has turned into a great place for these types of debates and discussions, and I'm going to keep putting it out there as long as I see it. I'm not saying everybody's right or wrong, but I just feel like the discussion has to go on.
Yeah, and I'm glad the discussion is open, and I encourage people to go to the Celeb Stoner site and find the posts and get involved in the comments and learn from each other and try to do it in a respectful way, because there's a lot of discussion to be had here. And especially women, we haven't heard women's voices on this. They haven't been as prominent in the marijuana movement as men for over the past 4 decades. So let's get that discussion going.
And by the way, I just want to add, because we're on the NORML show, the NORML Women's Alliance is really about this. If you look at their principles or their statement, their mission statement, the number 5 statement is about women being objectified in the marijuana world. And I'm following up on what they're saying. I think the NWA needs support from men, and I'm one of their biggest supporters. And I'd like to see more men jumping aboard the cause of what the NORML Women's Alliance is about.
Yeah, fantastic. And you can look them up at norml.org/women. And we'll continue, and we'll take calls and discussion on this in hour 2 as well, with Carrie here in the studio. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. So we'll get to that. I do want to get a chance to get to the other entertainment-related Celeb Stoner news. I know there's a few busts out there that we got to get to, and one that's near and dear to me as a fan of the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers.
Well, Johnny Jolly, who's a defensive lineman, a big guy, 325 pounds, got arrested down in Houston last Friday. Now, Jolly is a suspended player right now. He is, a member of the Green Bay Packers, but he was suspended for the whole last season for an arrest dating back to 2008 when it involved possession of codeine. Now, I don't know why they gave him the whole year off for having 200 grams of codeine, but they did. And plus, he, of course, was on probation due to that. And then he got caught with another 600 grams of codeine. So he's currently in jail because of his violating the probation. motivation. You know, the whole thing about codeine, and I'm not really quite sure in what form, but my guess it probably was liquid. And what happens down south, you know, is that there's sort of, there's a fascination with a drink called scissor, or it's a mixture of codeine and a juice or a soda. Lil Wayne has been famous for popularizing it. I'm not sure if he's still drinking it, but he used to be so-called addicted to it. And so it's a popular thing down south, and Houston is sort of the home of this sort of movement. So he got caught with that. I'm pretty sure it must have been a liquid, because I don't know what he'd be doing with all the, if it was like tablets of codeine. So, and interestingly, it's the third athlete who's been arrested on a similar charge like this in the last couple of years. Jamarcus Russell was arrested, the former quarterback for the 49ers. Last year, the case was dismissed, and then the Knicks' Sean Williams was arrested in Memphis, similar charge. So for some reason, guys are getting into this business, and obviously they should stay out of it. There were a couple of other arrests. Rick Ross, the rapper, was arrested in Louisiana for 1 gram of marijuana last Friday. He was in Shreveport, Louisiana. He was partying in a hotel. Somebody, kind of ratted out the party. Police came, must have smelled weed. They found 1 whole gram. They probably did a really good job of getting rid of what they had in that room. But they still found a scrap. It almost feels like, that's almost a badge of honor. Now he can go along with his buddies Snoop and everybody else and say, hey, I got arrested too. I even got a mugshot. I'm being a little fastidious, but, it just seems like it comes...
Street cred for a gram.
Comes with the territory hip-hop these days. It's like, hey, I need one of those. And also, you had mentioned, last time I was on the show, you mentioned that Clay Thompson had gotten arrested, and I really hadn't paid too much attention to it until I, read a little bit more about it. And Clay Thompson from Washington State University, the Cougars, was the leading scorer in the Pac-10 this year. He got arrested about 3 weeks ago, and he had to give a speech in front of the whole, a crowd of the fans, to apologize, and then lo and behold, like a week or two later, another player on that team, D'Angelo Castro, gets arrested, and then lo and behold, doing a little research in this team, their point guard got arrested back in December. So 3 of their starters got arrested for marijuana this year. The Cannabis Cougars, and so the Cougars, who did not make it into the NCAA, tournament, ended up in the NIT, the National Invitation Tournament, which is here in New York, and they actually made it to the semifinals. And the game that Castro was supposed to be suspended, they lifted the suspension because there was some question around the arrest. He pled not guilty. The lawyer says, it'll all get thrown out of court because it was, a bullshit search, or so on and so forth. And so they lifted the suspension. He went out and played. They won the game, which was really good. But then in the semifinals again, Wichita State, they got killed 75-44. So they weren't quite ready for that game. And Clay Thompson had his worst game of the season. He scored 6 points, and then Wichita State went on to win the championship anyway. So they were a damn good team. So it's always sort of interesting to follow athletes who get arrested for marijuana and just see how well they do in their how they do in their careers. And it obviously didn't hurt them for one game, but it hurt them another game.
Yeah, and Cannabis Cougars, Spokane, Washington, and I can imagine why they were smoking up there. Not a whole lot else to do. Before we round out this segment with you, Steve, of course you're the co-author of Reefer Movie Madness, the film guide, and there's a new movie coming out. You wanted to let us know about this Your Highness movie.
Yeah, looks like a good year for stoner movies. The last few years have not been as strong, even though there's constant uses of marijuana, other drugs in movies. Already this year there have been, numerous movies such as Paul and, where there's, marijuana scenes, a hall pass, and things like that. But there hasn't been probably, a straight up stoner movie that's come out yet, and we have one. It's coming out next Friday. It's called Your Highness. It's directed by the same guy who did Pineapple Express, David Gordon Green. It has some of the same actors, James Franco and Danny McBride, who are the leads. And it's a story set in the Middle Ages. It's just an adventure comedy set in the Middle Ages. The guys have to go save a princess, and it kind of strikes me as like a Monty Python type movie, and it sounds like a lot of fun. They smoke a lot of weed. Danny McBride is kind of a slacker brother, and he has to sort of get up his butt to help his other brother, save his fiancée, who's the princess, played by Zooey Deschanel, and the other woman in the movie is Natalie Portman, fresh off her Oscar win. Mm-hmm. So it's a great cast, just for the four of them alone, you just want to see this movie. But it should really be a blast. Anybody who's a fan of Pineapple Express, I'm sure will rush out to see this movie. And it seems like it might follow the same theme, with a lot of humor that leads up to some action, where there's, some battle scenes and things like that. So I think it's going to be similar as the movie crawls along. It's going to get a little more violent. So be prepared for that. But it looks like a lot of fun. The trailer shows a lot of scenes of pot smoking. They call it wizard weed, which is similar to Lord of the Rings, the so-called wizard weed. So they're playing up a lot of familiar themes. So it should be a blast. Having not seen it yet, I can't totally recommend it. I'm seeing it next week in a screening before the movie comes out on Friday. So I'll know by Tuesday how good or bad this movie is. But my guess from looking at the trailer and stuff like that, it should be a good one.
All right, that's Your Highness opening up this weekend, you say?
Next Friday. Next
Friday. Now, speaking of future Fridays, the next time we speak to you, April 15th, Tax Day, the third Friday of the month, will be our 700th episode, and it'll be our last episode before we meet again at the NORML National Conference. So I just want to let you know about that.
Well, it's very exciting, and congratulations to you. And it seems what you're doing there is very exciting. I see you're, sort of portioning off the show into different, radio segments and programs on a daily basis, which really seems exciting.
Yeah,
opening the door to a lot of other voices. Although I love your voice, and I love hearing you every day. Are you going to be out there every day doing this every day, or are you going to start sharing the load?
No. I'm still going to keep the daily show as the anchor here for the NORML Network. But we got a lot of great East Coast podcasts coming up. Chris Goldstein with Freedom is Green. Karina Cellini is with the Cannabis Times Radio is going to be joining us as well. So that's kind of my goal is let's get, a broad spectrum across the country because, how we think of marijuana here in Oregon is completely different of how you think about it in New York.
Well, this is really one of the best ways we communicate is via, internet radio. I do a lot of radio shows. Yours is my favorite, but there's been so many that I do, and and each one, has its own purpose. Some of them are, a little bit better, put together and better produced. But but either way, it's a great way to communicate. And I will be at the NORML conference. Excited to see you and all my NORML friends. The 21st to 23rd in Denver. On the 22nd, I'll be hosting the new media, blogging, social networking panel. That should be exciting. Russ, I think you're going to be on. I think Chris and it's going to be a fun panel to sort of talk about what we're doing. Those of us who spend most of our lives on the web doing news work and communicating with the people out there. What is it that we're doing? What are the problems that we face? What do we think we can accomplish by doing it online versus in other forms? So I'm very excited about that. Of course, I'm very excited to be out in Colorado for 420. I haven't been back in a couple of years, and I love the 420 event in Boulder. Hopefully I'll get up to that. If not, I'll just be at the one in Denver. But it should be a blast. So we're going to be mile high.
You couldn't have said it better, Steve. I will see you there. And thanks for joining us every couple of weeks here on NORML Show Live. You help make the show really go right into the weekend on a perfect note. We love it.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, Russ. See you soon.
Right. When we come back, a little bit of radical ranting on more police corruption in America. Can you believe it? Right back after this.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
You may recall a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, we did the story on the musician who was performing in his basement in Michigan. They were recording a jam session, a practice session, when the cops burst in based on a warrant they would received from searching his garbage and finding a stem, and from one of those anonymous tips, and they'd found a quarter ounce of marijuana, and the police officers were recorded on tape talking about how they could use asset forfeiture to seize all that man's equipment, all his property. We told you about that story, and during that story I mentioned how the drug war, one of the saddest parts about it is that it does corrupt law enforcement. It does cause some bad cops to take advantage of this, after demonizing drug users, that they feel like, oh, we're just scum and we deserve what we get, and why should they be making a police officer's salary? Well, there's all this cash here, etc. So there's a lot of corruption in the drug war that doesn't get as much media play as it should. So I wanted to take this opportunity to commend the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper, which is in yesterday. Jackson Vanderbeeken, Chronicle staff writer, writes about a case that's going on in San Francisco. A San Francisco judge dismissed marijuana trafficking allegations Wednesday after finding a videotape contradicted officers' account of a drug search at a suspect's Richmond district apartment. In the latest case in which video appeared to undermine police testimony, Superior Court Judge Gerardo Sandoval issued his dismissal order after a 3-day preliminary hearing on drug dealing charges lodged against McLaren Wenzel, age 23, stemming from a March 1 police search and seizure of 4 pounds of marijuana. Sandoval cited inconsistencies in the police accounts with the videotape. Now, this new case, has strong similarities to the scandal unfolding against 8 Southern Station officers who have been reassigned from a plainclothes detail after videotapes appeared to contradict their accounts of several drug raids in a Tenderloin single-room occupancy hotel. So far, that scandal has triggered the dismissal of 76 cases and an ongoing FBI probe. All right, so here's what happened as we get down further in the story here, is that the officers recounted that they were answering a report of a possible marijuana grow operation inside the building on 33rd Avenue and Geary Boulevard when they encountered Wenzel, the 23-year-old, as he came out of the unit. They said that they had their stars visible outside their clothing, their badges, right? They had their stars visible outside their clothing when they talked to the 23-year-old who admitted having a small amount of marijuana. All right. And showed them his prescription note, his medical marijuana recommendation note. Again, the media, after 15 years, does not understand it's not a prescription, it's a recommendation. Anyway, he showed them his recommendation note and then let them in 30 seconds after he went back inside his unit, according to police here. His public defender, accompanied by his defense attorney, Robert Amperin, played surveillance tape at a press conference, pointing out that the tape clearly showed the officers did not have their stars visible as they entered the underground garage and as they walked down the hall toward Wenzel's unit. They said it appeared that rather than waiting for Wenzel to go inside his unit and give them permission to enter, the officer simply followed him in from the hallway. So based on the videotaped evidence, this is according to Adachi, the public defender, based on the videotaped evidence presented in court and the testimony of the sergeant in court, Judge Sandoval dismissed the case, finding that the testimony was not credible and not supported by the evidence. And this is just the newest case. Again, the previous case they're talking about, 76 cases have been dismissed in this scandal going on in San Francisco. And San Francisco, we're talking about just one city, and a city that's very, very friendly to the whole notion of medical marijuana and people using cannabis. So for them to be finding these, they're the ones that are most likely going to find this kind of corruption and want to point it out. And so it's got to be going on in cities all across America. And the really ironic part of this to me is that you got these 3 different officers who got up on the stand and told the same test-a-lie. And civil libertarians, like myself, we always get upset about there being so many video cameras in society and we have no privacy and everywhere we go, we're on camera. Isn't it kind of ironic that to protect the civil liberties of this man, this 23-year-old Wenzel, from these cops lying on the stand, was because there were all these surveillance and video cameras around. That now we have to have the surveillance and video cameras around in the public sphere to protect us from the law enforcers. And it's also quite tragic, if you ask me, that in, I believe it's 12 states, maybe it's 13, I'm not sure exactly right now, but in a number of states in the United States, you can be prosecuted for videotaping the police on your own. There's all sorts of wiretapping laws and secret recording laws that they'll use against you, so that if you try to film officers doing their job in the course of trying to arrest or investigate you, you can be prosecuted for obstruction of justice. How's that for life in the land of the free under the drug war? I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. We're going to stay tuned for Hour 2. Kaliko the intern's here, as well as Cannabis Carry. We'll have ourselves a good time and some conversation on the topics of the day. We're also taking your calls at 971-533-7111. Ganja John's up in Denver for the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup. He'll have some reports on the weekend, I believe, on his Ganja John channel on Stickum. We'll also see if we can get him on the phone, maybe get a recording with him and Danny and some of the other folks out there. So we will be back next week for another week of podcasts. For those of you staying here live, hope you stay with us the whole hour. And also stay tuned for the rest of the shows coming up on the NORML Network. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers. And happy April Fool's Day!
We love the earth.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed.